Hey, how are you doing? This is Dawnna St. Louis here, and this is Q2 of 2018. I'm still fighting with this little crazy cold a little bit. Like, it's still been there kind of driving me a little crazy. It's not a lot. It's just enough to be a nuisance, like a fly flying around your ear. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit today about Q2, right? Because, one second, don't go anywhere. Oh, never mind. I thought somebody was knocking. What's up, John? I want to say hello to everyone. So I want to talk a little bit about Q2 because one of the things that I notice that happens is that we get past Q1. Hey, Mohammed, how are you? It's snowing there. Oh, my gosh. Wait, it is snowing here. It's not snowing here. It was snowing this morning, but it's nice now. Hey, Mia, how are you doing? How are you? Good. Welcome to the, it's not a podcast. Welcome to the live stream. Not on a podcast today. So this is about business. This is about Q2, right? So we have this whole thing with Q1 and, Q1 is gone. And I was actually just talking to an entrepreneur earlier today and they didn't hit the goals that they wanted to hit by Q1. And then they said, it's like my whole year is gone. I was like, damn, bruh, it's like we still got 9 months to go. Like, don't give up yet. It's okay. We can still do this. So sometimes your Q1 doesn't go the way you want it to, or sometimes it goes absolutely great. And the question you have to ask yourself is, so first of all, who are you when it comes down to your goals? Like, seriously, who are you? And then number two, based on who you are, how do you behave? So let's talk about the three types of people from a goal setting perspective, because there are three very specific types of people when it comes down to goal setting. So, well, I'm sorry, that's a lie. There's four. There's four different types. The first type is the person who sets the goal entirely too high. Like, I'll talk to this person and they'll say, I'm going to make $1 million next year. Okay, awesome. How much did you make last year? I made $100,000 at my job. You're getting they're 10 times in your raise, or this is your first day out of are you hitting the lottery? Right, but they've really set a goal, and there's nothing wrong with a stretch goal, but they set the goal so far that they can't even see it. They don't even know what it feels like to even come close to that goal, right? So the first thing is you have your what I call these superhero overachievers. So they have a little bit of that superhero confidence that they're going to hit these goals that really are just, they're out there, they're crazy. Okay, so you could have a superhero person. So let's talk about your superhero goal achiever. Your superhero goal achiever is probably one of those people, they're really working hard and they really have great intentions. But what happens generally when someone has that superhero goal achievement thing is that they try stuff, and then when that stuff doesn't give them instant results, they quit. They quit instantly. They're like, oh, it didn't work, so I'm on to something else. And because they haven't tried anything for long enough, the goal that they're trying to hit, they just don't hit it because they're too much of that superhero goal hitting. So it's kind of like a little superhero syndrome. So that's the first type. The second type of person that you have is the person that they have realistic goals, right? And they pretty much come right in with those goals. So they're pretty much on point with their goals. They know where their goal is. They know what they're going to do to achieve it, and they're going to do exactly what it takes to achieve that goal, right? So we have those people who are super realists. And then we have our people who, what I call, they're really underachievers. Now, you might think that this means that, well, wait, the superhero person didn't reach their goal. That's different because they set their goals so high. The underachiever person is actually the other way. They set their goals so low, and then they knock them out of the park generally because the goals are set so low. They didn't even set a realistic goal. They set a goal that anybody can hit. Like my goal was to make $1 today. I'm like, you can find $1 like in the cushion of your car seat usually. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that whatever goals you're looking at, you're not being an overachiever or an underachiever. You pretty much want to be right on point. But even with those people, we like to have stretch goals. And then finally, my last person is the no-goal person. They get up, they're busy, and they're busy a lot. They don't really have a path. They don't really have a goal. If they make money, okay. They don't really know how they're going to make that money. They have no idea how they're going to achieve their goals. They're just like, whatever. So those are the 4 types. So we want to talk about how do you make sure that regardless of how your Q1 went, how do you set realistic goals? That's the big number 1, because that's what we want to do. How do you set realistic goals? How do you reach those realistic goals? And how do you even create for yourself some stretch goals? So I'm going to walk around a little bit, but how do you even create some of those stretch goals? So we're going to talk about that, number 1. So let's say your Q1 didn't go exactly as you wanted it to go. Like you didn't kill Q1, and maybe you're even feeling like, oh, I'm a failure because I didn't hit Q1. I don't want you to worry about that, right? Q1 is in your rearview mirror, and now we're going to go ahead and talk about what you're going to do for Q2, okay? So let's talk about your realistic goal. I think, now as I say this, you're going to say, but she just said don't be a superhero. I want you to think about your Q1. So let's say in Q1 you wanted to hit $25,000, a little more than $2,000 a week. In Q2, I want you to up it a bit. If you hit that $25,000, I want you to up it a bit. If you didn't come close to it, I want you to stay right at 25, right? So if you hit it, fine. If you went over it, we're going to go up. If you hit it, we're going to go up. If you didn't come close, we're going to stay right there. We're not going to go down. That's the first thing. Now I want you to look at your Q1, and I want you to identify for Q1 things that you did, whether it was target markets you went after, that no matter how many calls you made, no matter what you did, this target market just did not respond. Regardless of what happened, this target market did not respond. So that's the first target market you're going to look at. What did I do that just didn't work? Then I want you to look at what did you do that absolutely worked and it worked well, right? So what did you do that it just didn't work? I want you to really think about that. Maybe you decided that you were going to do a cold call campaign, and when you were doing your cold call campaign, you got no results. Maybe you decided to do an email campaign and your email campaign got no results. Something has to change there. You can't keep doing the same things that aren't working and expecting them to suddenly start working. You have to think smarter. So is it that your email campaign didn't work because you were reaching out to the wrong people? So you have to check your, Michael put everything, exactly. Did your email campaign not work because of what you put in the email? Did your email campaign not work because of who you're reaching out to? One of those two things has to change. Now, this is the way I determine that. So let's say I do, because I'm not just doing one campaign. I'm not just doing an email campaign. I'll do an email campaign, a phone call campaign, a social media campaign. But I'm doing them to maybe 2 or 3 very specific target markets. So if I do all 3 of those, let's say to market 1, and market 1 doesn't respond, then I'm not going to get mad at the campaign if market 2 and 3 responded. That means that target market that I was going after with that campaign just did not work. And by the way, I might not even reach out to them anymore. I'm going to say that's just not my target market. I'm going to leave them alone. And then I'm going to go and look at my campaigns that did work. So let's say I did an email campaign, a phone call campaign, and a social media campaign. And when I did my email campaign, I got the most results. My social media campaign got great results, but my cold call campaign got no results. Then I'm not going to continue to waste time in a cold call campaign because that's not working. So maybe what I'll do is an email campaign, a social media campaign first, an email campaign second, and then do a phone call campaign to those people that responded third. In other words, I'm going to switch things up a little bit. My point is that during this time, regardless of whether you are an overachiever, an underachiever, you're right on the mark, or or you're not achieving at all, you don't even have any goals to achieve, you still want to take a look at your first quarter and you want to determine, well, what did I do that didn't work? And then look at the formula that you're using. How's my yoga instructor Darren doing? So you want to really decide what you did that didn't work and how can you switch that around? Because maybe it's not that the phone call campaign didn't work. Maybe it's that the cold call campaign didn't work. And instead of doing a cold call and email and social media, maybe it needs to be social media, email, and then phone call. Maybe you have to switch things around a little bit. But this is that time. Actually, what I would tell you, God's honest truth, is the time was last week. The last week before the new quarter starts is when I start looking at, especially if I've hit my numbers, I really start looking at, well, what am I going to do different next quarter? Now, once you have decided, are you going to reach out to someone different? Notice I'm not telling you to do extra work. Stop. I'm not asking you to do extra work. What I'm asking you to do is do the work that you currently do, but do it smarter and do it to people who really want your information. Don't keep knocking down the same exact doors and it's not working. Start looking at other patterns. There is a pattern to your successes. If you had someone that you reached out to and those people consistently, here's a perfect example. So I would be the first one to tell you that back in the day, I never, ever, ever thought that I would talk to bankers or banking associations. After all, I talk a lot about entrepreneurship and how to have entrepreneurial thinking. And so I would just say the banking industry was not my area at all for people to reach out to me. But in the last year, I think I've done probably around 6 or 7 events in banking. In fact, I have 2 more leads that are from the banking industry. And what I found interesting was they were reaching out to me in regards to something that was very entrepreneurial. And it was really, well, how do entrepreneurs think? And because 90% of entrepreneurs that aren't going for funding are using their intellectual property, they're bootstrapping their businesses. And so banks are missing out on those opportunities. So they want to know, well, wait, what should they be coming to us with from an entrepreneurial standpoint so that we can fund them? How do they think? What should they have in place? How can we send them to you so that they have these things in place so that we can fund them? So they were looking at how do you work with individuals differently. And then they were bringing a lot of their market of entrepreneurs to their conferences. So they're having these user conferences. They're filled with entrepreneurs. If you would have asked me before last year, I would have said, I never reach out to banking. Now, one of the number one target markets that I talk to is banking. So I had to change my mindset and I had to change my activities in order to reach a target market that I didn't even think was mine. And I had to explain to them, for the ones that I hadn't reached out to yet, why they were my target market based on what another banking industry had said to me. So this is really something to think about. So when you're identifying who you're reaching out to for this quarter, I want you to look at what didn't work for last quarter. Just what didn't work. Stop doing that. Like, seriously. Keep doing the things that did work. And then for that piece that you pulled out, whatever piece you pulled out, find a new target market and put it in, or find a new way of reaching out and put that in. I'm not asking you to do more work. I'm asking you to shift away from what doesn't work and shift into what does work. Now, you also have to have a plan. Because again, I get people who I talk to and I'm like, so how much do you want to do this year? And they're $1 million. Okay, well, I want to do $10 billion this year. So what's realistically going to happen from an unrealistic perspective? The reason I say that is I really want people to come up and say, I did $100,000. I want to work smarter, not harder. And the smart part of this, Darren, is making sure that when you're working smarter, you're not doing extra work. You're shifting from what doesn't work and shifting towards what does work and then adding something new. So if I take out all the things that don't work, I do a little bit more of what does work, and then I add something new, then all of a sudden I'm doing a lot more of what does work, and then I'm testing this new thing. So if this new thing doesn't work, at least I have time to tinker with it, right? Because you really want to start getting those numbers up so that every time you make a phone call, instead of being at maybe a 10% success rate, you're getting to the point where at a 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% success rate. I know when I get on the phone that this person is my perfect target market. So Muhammad was talking about the 80-20 theory. There is no shortcut to hard work. You're absolutely right, Michael. There is no shortcut to hard work, but hard work can be done smarter. Absolutely. So I'm saying when you are going to do the work, make sure you're doing the work in a smart way. I'm not saying be a lazy ass salesperson. I'm saying be a really super smart, savvy salesperson, but do more of that work in a target market where you're going to make more of those dividends. And so the 80-20 rule is this, that 20% of the people that you reach out to are going to make up about 80% of your income. I think that rule is accurate, but I think it can also be improved. And that's what this is about. This is about not living by the 80-20 rule. This is saying that, you know what? Of the 50% of the people that I reach out to, I'm going to get a hell of a lot more return. So I really want to make that happen. I really don't want to have 2 out of 10 people say yes. I want to have 5 out of 10 people, 6 out of 10 people say yes. That's kind of the goal. So you really want to look at that. So the first thing, so here's the thing. The first thing I would tell you to do to make quarter 2 good is go and do a review of quarter 1. What sucked? What didn't work? What did work? What was a new thing? And what's the new thing that you're going to try for quarter 2? So that's number 1. Here's your big number 2. Your big number 2 is to actually create a realistic goal for quarter 2. So if my goal for the entire year, just for argument's sake, is $100,000, then quarter 1 is 25, quarter 2 is 25, quarter 3 is 25, and quarter 4 is 25. If you did not hit your first quarter, we're not going to worry about that yet. Because I would tell you to take quarter 1 and split it over your next 3 quarters to make up for it, right? So to put $8,000 additional in each quarter. But for right now, let's just say that you're only worried about quarter 2. So if quarter 2 is $25,000, and we're going to break that up into 3 months, we're going to do about $2,000 a week, right? Or $8,000, a little more than $8,000 a month, right? So we're about $8,300, $8,400. So when I look at that, I'm looking at $2,100 a week. What do I need to do to close $2,100 a week worth of business? How many phone calls is that? How many activities is that? 80-20 says, Michael was just saying, the 80-20 rule really is about talking to 20% of your pipeline that can and will buy. No sense wasting time with the prospects that can't or won't buy. Hence, working smarter. Now, the key is adding more prospects to that 20% group, which I would tell you makes your pipeline fatter and more lucrative and profitable. And you really want to get to where it's more than 20% of your pipeline is. And when you have more than 20% of your pipeline that makes up 80% of your business, that's when you really start increasing your prices. Okay, anyway, so back to the thing. So if I'm doing $100,000, it's $25,000 a quarter. I have this quarter to get $25,000. That means I have about $2,100, a little bit more per week. What work do you have to do to get $2,100 this week? What work did you do last quarter to get $2,100? Now let's be specific. What was the expertise that you were talking about? What was the target audience? And why did that target audience buy from you? How was your information delivered to that target audience? How can you duplicate those efforts this quarter? That's how you're going to hit that. And what you're going to do is every single solitary week as you're making those phone calls until you say, I have done enough work to hit this $2,100 mark this week, you keep working. Now, some people like to slide off a little bit. I'm going to tell you how I am. I like to go ahead and get all of my money in the first 2 weeks of the month so I can chill out the last 2 weeks. But it's totally up to you, because what will happen is people will start living on the illusion of what they think their pipeline is going to bring them rather than what it actually does bring them. And so you want to have a pipeline that's lucrative, that's consistently bringing you money all the time. But you can't get there without a real plan. And you want to make sure that you have a goal that's realistic with a touch of stretch, right? No superhero goals here. Realistic with a touch of stretch. The reason I say that is if your goal is so out of whack and so out of mind, if you're like, I want to make $1 million, even if you make $450,000 that year, you're going to feel like a complete failure because you didn't hit that. And so this goes to my last and my final point on this. What is your reward to yourself for hitting your goal? See, a lot of times we, especially as entrepreneurs, we don't reward ourselves for hitting our goals. So I'll tell you what mine used to be, and it's not so much just because I think I'm running out of closet space, is that I used to have that if I closed a really big deal, so let's say I closed a keynote, but that particular month I closed, for every $50,000 I would make, I would gift myself $2,000 worth of clothes and shoes and stuff, which isn't really hard for me to do. And so I'm like, if I made 50 grand, I'm going and buying myself $2,000 worth of clothes. The problem is that I kept getting so motivated to make the 50 so I could go shopping. And I really do mean, like, I would not go buying anything. I wouldn't buy jeans, shoes, underwear. I wouldn't buy anything until I hit that 50. And then when I hit that 50, I had $2,000 and I didn't feel guilty about it because I'm like, I got $2,000, actually $2,500, just saying, $2,500 cash. It was like my own little personal bonus commission check for hitting that goal, right? And the goal was already a stretch goal. So if I hit that goal, I would go out and reward myself. The issue is that entrepreneurs, we forget to reward ourselves. We forget to put the reward. We will beat ourselves up for not making $1, but we will not reward ourselves for making $2. So what's your reward? What is the thing that you give yourself in order to make sure that when you reach those goals, that not only, I mean, everybody's like, my reward is my dollars in my bank account. The problem is money is not a real motivator. I know that sounds crazy because I talk about greed all the time. It's not an ongoing enough motivator because once you have the money and you start using it, it then becomes an expectation that you're going to get it. So money stops becoming a motivator until it becomes a hindrance. In other words, I can't pay my rent. Now I have to, and you become desperate. So I want you to think about what is the treat? What is the thing that you get, right? And make sure that it's not counterproductive. Like people who go and lose a lot of weight, they'll lose 10 pounds and they'll go, and because I lost 10 pounds, I get to eat a whole cake. Maybe not. Maybe you get to go and buy a $200 pair of sneakers. I don't know, like whatever it is, but it should be something that's conducive with your continuing to reach your goal. Now, I'll tell you, for me, one of mine was when I reached my goal this one year, I wanted an iMac computer and the new giant, like ginormous screen. And it was probably like $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000. But when I hit that goal, when I had hit my two $50,000 goals consistently, instead of me going and buying clothes, I went and bought this ridiculous computer, like all this technology. So that was one of my big things because I'm such a techno geek. So that's the third thing I would tell you to do. So just a really quick recap. Number one, what worked last quarter that you can repeat this quarter? What didn't work last quarter that you're going to totally wipe out? Right? Or figure out why it didn't work and what you can change up a little bit. And number three is what are you going to bring in that's a little bit something new, right? In other words, I don't want you to say, well, Dawnna, I did these 4 things and this 4th thing didn't work. And so now 25% of my new stuff. No, I want you to increase these maybe to 80 or 90% and then do 10% of new stuff. Because we know these things work. If these things work, let's do a little bit more of them. And then just let's do a tiny bit of this new thing. And this new thing starts outperforming some of this stuff, then we bring one of these down. That's all I'm saying. So that's number one. What are you going to start doing, stop doing, keep doing? And then number two, what are your realistic goals? And then how do you add just a 10% or 20% to those realistic goals? And then number three is how are you going to reward yourself when you really go out of there and you knock it out of the park? What is that one sexy thing that you want? And I'm not really big, by the way, on credit and credit cards and saying, I'm going to go buy a new car. If I can't buy it cash, I'm usually not going to buy it because that's just how I roll. And so what I would say is think of something that you can get for yourself that you can go, boom, I went and I knocked out this goal and now I want this thing. Now I will tell you my number is 2%. So I will only give 5%. So I will only give myself 5% as a bonus, but then I have a very cash rich business. So you have to think about that. So what is your bonus that you're going to give yourself for really reaching that goal? Okay, so that's it. That's what I got for you guys. I want to really hear about how you're killing it in Q2 of 2018. And remember, don't be a superhero goal setter. Don't do that. Don't be a no goal setter. Try to be someone who's a little bit more on point and then just stretch your goal by 10 or 20%. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. I can't wait to hear how you're killing it on your goals, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.